At Sierra, discover top workout gear at incredible prices, which might lead to another discovery. Your headphones haven't been connected this whole time. Awkward. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
This episode is brought to you by Intuit TurboTax. Didn't file with TurboTax last year? That's in the past. Now, Taxes is getting the TurboTax app and filing your own taxes for free if you didn't file with them last year. File by February 18th. All tax forms, all 100% free. Now, this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax. New filers and filers who didn't use TurboTax last year only must start and file your own taxes in-app by February 18th. Excludes TurboTax Live. Full terms at TurboTax.com.
The Dental Download podcast is your source for insight from conversations with fellow dentists, specialists, and leaders in the industry. With new episodes every Monday morning, I'm your host, Dr. Haley. Let's get into this week's episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Dental Download podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Haley, and we're going to be giving advice this week. So I have done chronicles about this topic of finding an associate job that is right for you specifically. I have a really, I find to be kind of interesting episode about red flags during the job search, because some of my favorite things to do is to pull together stuff from all of my community. So other working dentists that have gone through this process, maybe had jobs that they would consider to be horrible or just not the right fit. And you can learn from their experiences and hopefully not have to go through all the same struggles if they can be avoided. So we have quite a few different episodes about this topic. And let me just say, this is really looking for a role as an associate dentist specifically, or maybe if you're looking to hire, this can kind of give you the opposite insight of like what associate job seekers are looking for so that you can make your position more enticing, perhaps. But this really isn't super applicable if you're looking to buy a practice, acquire a practice, do a startup, anything like that, or maybe even going down like a DSO clinical lead position. Like this is more just general dentist associate positions. And if you want to know more about practice ownership and startup, you can search the title Dental Download Podcast, ownership, practice, startup, things like that, because I have plenty of guests over our 200 plus episodes that talk about that. But this is about the job search. And I'm going to be doing 5 tips, just like quick, really key things that you can use to either figure out between your final decision which one you want to do, or maybe if you have a lot of opportunities and you're in that lucky situation, compare the opportunities. And speaking of comparing, when I was in your shoes of looking for a job, I had a little spreadsheet because I'm that kind of person, and I made all these different categories and gave them different amount of weight of importance, basically by giving them a certain amount of points. And then I rated all the offices that I went to, not just the office, obviously, the whole experience, the team, all of the things. And the total score for each opportunity kind of helped me compare which one was the best one for me. And I go a lot more detail into that in the whole series of episodes about job search. So if you want to know the red flags in associate job search, that episode is 181. If you want the Chronicles series real time as I was going through the process that you might be going through right now, the episode numbers are 159, 163, 167, and then the finale of how I actually chose my current office is number 193. So it's something that you can kind of just binge listen to, get all the insight. And I really do recommend listening to those if you have not yet, because they're really key to understanding this whole thing. And they're nice because they're raw. I recorded them right when all of that was happening. So it's a very different perspective than what I'm sharing today, even though I'm only 7 months into working. So before we get into the 5 tips, since this is a solo episode, and I think I haven't done this in a while with the holidays and everything going on and things being pre-recorded, we need to do our catch-up and our little motivational segment. So we're going to do our life update, recommendation of the week, motivator of the week, and one thing I learned this week. Life update. The house build, we're getting very, very close to actually starting, which is funny because it's February and it's so snowy, but apparently you can build in the snow. Beats me. I don't think we'll probably start for another month or so, but we finished the plans about 3 weeks ago, and the builder is putting together the budget and getting everything going with the subcontractors and also putting together our contract with the construction company. So once we get that, we'll review it and sign it. Hopefully that's within the next week or so. And then after that, the bank needs to approve everything, which can take about 3 weeks. And then it's officially happening. At that point, we will pay money and it's a legitimate thing, which is, I have a mix of emotions about it. Overall, I'm very excited, but it's also super, super scary to be taking on, additional debt in that way of a home and going through this process where I'm someone that really likes to be very systematic and planned and controlled. And as helpful as that will be during the process, I know there's going to be things that go wrong that are simply out of my control. And that's always so hard for me to deal with. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later in this catch up, that there's always room for growth, and challenging experiences only make us better. So I'm trying to approach the situation with that perspective, but that's a very big thing that's going on right now. And then additionally, lots of travel. So I was down in Florida for part of Christmas with my family, and then we spent the other part up here in Michigan, where we're both from, with Justin's family. I had my sister's bachelorette a few weekends ago in January, and then I have another one coming up for one of my friends in 2 weeks in February. And then in March, I have my implant course, which is a week long in Arizona. And then in April, we may or may not do another trip, probably not, but I kind of want to go see my friends in Denver just for a quick weekend trip. I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but either way, then we have my sister's wedding in May. We have more weddings in June, and the year's just going to fly by because there's so much travel and events, and then eventually our own wedding and honeymoon. And it's all very exciting because it gives us something to look forward to each month, in addition to when we do get weekends where we're just home together. Like this weekend, for example, I really do value that time. I try to make the most of it. We spend a lot of time together. I really make sure that we use the time well to kind of get the house in order and do a lot of preparation for healthy, structured living. So a lot of cooking and planning in that way. And I really try to just maximize those times. And then when we have the fun times, try to lean into those, eliminate feeling stressed about them, and just try to enjoy them for what they are in this very, I guess, like friend, travel, more expensive era of our life. And eventually we'll see when things calm down in 2026 what we get up to then, because I feel like there's always more things you can be doing. Next would be our recommendation of the week. So I would say this week I encourage you to find good recipes or new recipes instead of cooking the same old thing, even if you don't mind eating it. We really didn't have to buy many new ingredients this weekend than what we typically buy, like the same proteins, same veggies for the most part. Everything was pretty much the same, and we had all of the different seasonings and things in our pantry already. But it was finding different flavor profiles or ways to pair things together, or just to use up what you have in the house already. And it can make food and cooking and bringing food to work instead of buying food, saving money in that way, being healthier, all of that more appealing again. So for us, we chose to use some old HelloFresh recipe cards, and we're looking forward to making some of those today as kind of meal prep for lunches for the week. But you can also look on ChatGPT. Is really nice if you want to look up specific ingredients, like what can I make with XYZ thing I have in the fridge or pantry that I need to use up. Or you can literally do that just through Google or looking up a type of food you want to eat. You can get great recipes, of course, online and for free. My motivator this week, these next two are just really raw and honest, but honestly, this weekend I've been in a bit of a slump, just like mentally, emotionally. It really happens to everyone, I've just been kind of down for no particular reason. But what is sticking out to me in that moment and these moments of this weekend is that saying that's like, do it tired, do it sad, do it whatever, do it when you don't want to, basically. Like whatever your list is of things you need to get done, whatever your goals are, don't let yourself get too far off track. Obviously, you want to give yourself some grace and kind of, feel your feelings, but then like move on. And even if you don't feel better, just do what you need to do. Keep working towards your goals, whether you feel like it or not, is kind of the harsh reality sometimes, because if you get too far off track, you're going to just feel worse. And it's nice to have some consistency and also a sense of accomplishment when you get things done, even if you're not in as joyous of a state as maybe you normally are. If you're just feeling a little down with like the weather or whatever may be going on in life, still focusing on accomplishing things from your goals is going to make you feel better, even when maybe you're feeling down otherwise. And the last thing we do in our catch up is one thing I learned this week. And that is another vulnerable thing, is that even when you've grown or improved a lot at something, you still can struggle with the same old habits or same problems, or just when you think you have grown a lot, you might face a challenge that makes you think otherwise. And that's okay, because that's life and no one is perfect. And there's always room for growth. From beginner to expert can even still get more expert than expert, There's pretty much endless potential when it comes to learning, and try to look at that with that being a cool thing, not like, oh, it's just impossible to ever achieve any goals because the bar keeps moving up, 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 and up. Look at that as an exciting opportunity, and make sure you do look back and recognize how far you've come, because I certainly do, but I've just kind of realized that I still have a long way to go in many regards. So what made me think of this? In the last episode about my goals within dentistry this year, I talked about how I was tracking my treatment plan presentations and the acceptances or people that did not schedule. So what was the result of the treatment plan presentations? Tracking it was honestly the easy part. The part that I am intimidated by, but I need to do anyways this week, which is the really intimidating part, is the follow through. So calling up those patients that didn't schedule and figuring out exactly what I want to say on the phone to help open the door for them to come back or to get scheduled or answer their questions. It's not like I don't think I can answer the questions, but it's how to reach out to someone in a way that doesn't feel pushy or salesy, but more out of genuine care for them and their health, which is definitely how I've been told to approach it. But I just want to figure out like what line I should use to do that when I'm literally on the phone with them. So I'm going to work with our practices coaching team perhaps to figure that out, or just do it and do some trial and error and see what lands. But like I've said before, I do know that I have gotten a lot more confident talking to patients when it comes to being in the operatory face-to-face. I think my skills have improved a ton in 6-7 months of work. But over the phone, it does feel pretty awkward to me. But that's because I basically don't do it. I only call patients when I absolutely have to. So just know that even if it seems like maybe I've made a lot of progress towards my goals and you don't feel the same way or something, there are plenty of areas where I am still growing or still struggle. No one is perfect, but the key here is that I'm going to make myself do it anyways, even though I really don't particularly want to feel uncomfortable. And I know that I might get some rejection, and that's what's holding me back, and just the icky feelings that I have. But as I've said in many, many episodes about talking to patients, is my own insecurities about how I'm going to sound on the phone are not more important than the patient's health. So even if I kind of stumble over my words or just seem a little awkward, or the patient doesn't want to schedule, or maybe I do seem salesy, or whatever the problem may be, at least I'm making the effort towards getting this person to come back in and get the treatment that they need because they have dental disease going on. That's the most important thing to go back to, is like, it is my duty to try to do this, even if it's not the most graceful in the end, but it's going to get better every single time. And that's the only way to learn. So whatever you were thinking of as I was talking about all of this, make sure you challenge yourself to do that this week.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouthwatering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Hey, Atlanta, Apple is open for small business. That's right. We're here to make starting and running your business simpler. With privacy and security built in on all devices, it's easy for you to protect your customers' data. And if you need hardware or software support, you'll get advice from business experts at no cost whatsoever. So you can focus more on the soup du jour and less on, the other stuff. At Apple, we're open for your small business. Go to apple.com/small business or visit an Apple store to learn more.
So now that we're all caught up on life, let's get into the 5 tips for searching for a job as a dentist. These are not in any particular order, by the way. So first one is the pay structure. You want that to be simple and clear. The more simple it is, the better. My pay structure was like one sentence in my contract. It was % of this, period. There was no if this, then that, or conditional on this and that, or minus this plus that. That's just messy. And if it is hard for you to run a report from your practice management software and calculate what your pay is, then that's a problem. If it seems like they're the only ones that know because you don't even understand how it's possibly calculated because there's so many tiers and different ways that things go, or what's taxed as bonus versus traditional income, so messy. And personally, if I ever saw the word draw, I would not sign something, but that's just me. And if they have trouble explaining it to you, whoever is talking to you about this job opportunity, that's a little bit of a red flag, I would say. Or if they need to show you multiple pages of calculations or spreadsheets to show you that it's a pretty simple, it makes a lot of sense. It should not be. It should be these numbers equal this times this %. That's what you get. Maybe, and then also your lab bill equals this times this % is subtracted from what you would have gotten. And then that's what you get. That is still very straightforward to me. But try to make sure your pay structure is simple and clear and seems fair for your area. Next up is mentorship, I think is key if you are looking for a job out of school, or even if you just want to keep growing. I mean, I don't know who wouldn't want to grow as a clinician personally, no matter what stage that you're in. But I think there's many different ways you can be mentored. So it's important to know what you would like that to look like. And you want to just directly ask, what is mentorship going to look like in this role? And see if that aligns with your goals. Is it structured? The doctor's maybe not in the office, but you have their phone number and you can reach out when you want. And that's it. Because then, from what I've heard from people, that doesn't happen that much. And they don't get that much out of it because they don't really have time to reach out, or the doctor doesn't respond right away. And by the time they respond, it's too late because the patient already left, and just not that hands-on, I guess. Or maybe the doctor's not in the office all the time with you, but they have a set time every Thursday evening when patients leave. They're going to go over any questions you have from that week or any questions for cases coming up. Personally, that would be fine with me. I, as I've mentioned, work in an office where there's always at least one other doctor there with me. Most of the time, there's 2 other doctors the whole time. So I can step out of a case and even ask a doctor a question about a patient right then if I have one, or after the fact, just say, this is what I did. Usually it's mostly communication things, like how could I have went about this better? Or how would you have said this to this patient? But it's nice. I feel like our little doctor's room within the office, our little office, is a big think tank. Well, small. It's a tiny, tiny room. We're kind of crammed in there, but I feel like it's a think tank, and we just, have such strong community and really teach each other a lot and learn a lot about dentistry, about leadership, about communication, about our personal lives, all those things. And I really, really value that. So if for some reason I ever left this role, I think I would want to be in another place where there are multiple doctors working simultaneously. I don't think I'd want to be alone, whether or not I feel like I need clinical mentorship. If you're at a different stage of your journey, just the community aspect would be important to me. But again, that's kind of on its own little tangent. But pretty much figure out what you want mentorship to be, or do you want someone literally holding your hand and checking everything you do? I don't think people are going to do that because that makes patients very uncomfortable if they're coming in all the time to look at your stuff. But I think there's ways you can do it that's smooth if it is your first implant in practice after you've already done live CE. Maybe you just phrase it Dr. So-and-so is going to take a look at this before we go ahead and put the cap on. That way they can make sure that it looks right. I don't know. You wouldn't want to say that, but that's what I'm saying. There's ways you can go about phrasing it that probably is less weird for the patient, but you probably wouldn't want to say that. But just figuring out how much, I guess, hands-on help you need, how much verbal help you need, whether it's clinical, whether it's leadership, whether it's communication with patients, and just be honest with the person that's hiring and make sure that that's something that is going to happen in that office. And obviously, coming out of school, you don't necessarily know all of your weaknesses because you haven't been put in the scenario yet, but try to do some reflection and think about what your weaknesses might be and what might be the best type of mentorship for you. Number 3, the team. Some things I would be looking for is that the office feels like they are respectful of you as a doctor, regardless of the different ages or experience years within the office. I would also personally like one where the team feels like they're a family. A lot of times they'll mention that or they won't mention that, and that can be kind of something to pick up on. If the team is always kind of looking to help each other as much as they can, like take on the load for someone else if they are struggling with a personal situation or had to take time off, or just someone's column is getting really backed up, if the other person will step in and seat one of those patients instead, even though it wasn't on their schedule, like just helping things run smoothly for the benefit of the team rather than looking out for themselves as individuals. I would want team members that enjoy their role and feel fulfilled. I would want to know that the team feels supported and valued by the ownership. I personally think it's a bonus if your team makes the dentist's life easier and can kind of tee up cases for you and hype you up to patients so that they're excited to work with you. All of those things are obviously an added bonus. But when you're doing a day shadowing at the office of a place you might prospectively work at, I would really, really try to get to know the team. Just kind of observe as well, see how they talk to each other, see how they talk to patients, how they answer the phone, get to know them, ask about their time at the office so far, maybe other places they've worked, how they ended up here, how they like it here, people that have worked there a long time, people that have worked there the least amount of time. Get to know everyone and just see what they have to say. I mean, people will tell you if there are some red flags to be aware of because it doesn't affect them at all, to be honest. So they're going to probably be pretty open with you. So I really tried to spend a lot of my time at these offices talking to the team members. I don't necessarily need to watch the owner doctor do a filling. Like, we know how fillings work. It was really more, I called it kind of playing an investigator role and seeing how the office runs and seeing if that's something that you feel like you could blend well into and grow within. Which leads us nicely into factor number 4 to consider when searching for a job as a dentist is the growth potential. So, what are the procedure scopes that you can learn at the office? And is that going to be through direct mentorship that they want to just teach you that as you're there? Or is it going to be something that they pay for your CE to go learn it externally? And then if you're learning those skills either at the office or externally, how will it be integrated into the office? Do they need to buy new equipment or technologies? Or do they have enough patients that would need that procedure? So how easy will it be to integrate that into the office? And also, are they financially prepared to do that for you, to bring that skill into the office, whatever it is that you want to improve on or add into your repertoire? So you also want to think about procedures that they do want you to do or don't want you to do. So maybe they don't do any endo, but they would love to have someone do endo because they could make more money as an office if they didn't refer as much endo. Okay, but if none of them do endo, what are you going to do when you're stuck in a tricky situation? Are they going to connect you with the doctor they refer to? And is that person going to let you openly collaborate with them about cases and respect that you're only taking on the more simple cases and still going to continue referring to the specialist for some things? Or are they going to pay for you to take CE? Who are you going to go to when you have problems if no one in the office actually has that skill set? So that's something to think about and make sure you talk about in advance. Or are there any procedures they don't want you doing? For example, maybe one doctor already does a bunch of endo and they don't want anyone else to do endo because that doctor wants to keep up their workload and there's only so many patients that need it, perhaps, in your scenario. So maybe if you have an interest in endo, that's not the right office for you. You just want to really know what they expect or what they want or what they're open to. And if they're just very vague, like, oh, like anything will be good, or like, we'll make it work, whatever you want to do, like, we want to support you, like, you have to dive deeper and ask more questions, ask more open-ended questions. That way you get this information. And I would say too much of any one procedure scope means eventually you're going to run out of patients. So you don't want everyone trying to do like high-end cosmetic cases at the office, and no one wants to do the general dentistry. So like there needs to be a balance. And I would also say for growth potential, make sure that they are open-minded about your input to helping the office succeed and grow. If that's something you're interested in, if you want to literally clock in, clock out, you don't care what's going on at the office, you just want to fix teeth and leave, okay. But if you want a place you can feel a lot of fulfillment at and like you're making an impact, every day that you go into work, you would want to know that they are open to improvements and suggestions of helping the team and the office succeed and grow, and like they value what your contributions may be. So last thing, number 5 to consider is location. To me, this actually is one of the least important things in a way, because there are subjectively, depending what you're basing them on, but there are bad offices everywhere. And there are good offices pretty much everywhere, but the location is still something I would put in the top 5 because it affects a lot. It affects growth potential, profitability potential, your overall life happiness if you do or don't like where you live or have access to things that make you happy. All of that's very important. And again, location, you're looking at competition amongst other offices, but also collaboration with other offices and having community with other dentists, rather than feeling like, oh, well, there's no competition, but there's also no one around and I'm on an island and I have no support and no one that understands what I'm going through. So you just have to know what's kind of the right fit for you in that regard. And then also profitability, growth potential, all of that is subjective to kind of competition, thinking about that as well. But it's a balance of making sure you like where that place is and that you're going to be happy for you, partner, family, friends, whatever is kind of in your decision-making process, and make sure that that location will support what everyone is looking for. So with all that said, I hope you all enjoyed this week's episode. Be sure again to check out the ones that I've done already way back when I was making the decision of where I would be working now. And as you all have heard many times, I am extremely happy with the place that I'm at. And I think all that goes back to being very, very diligent in my job search process, not really settling for anything, giving myself tons of time. I started looking at the start of D4 year. So at this point, many months before where D4s are now, but that's okay. That's because I was looking more rural opportunities and they're willing to wait longer. If you're looking in a more metro area, this is definitely the time to start reaching out, even as late as March, a couple months before graduation, a couple months before you'd want to start working, because they're busy and they want help right away. They're going to keep looking in the meantime. So it's kind of finding a sweet spot, but starting to look now is definitely a great time if you're a D4. And if anyone has questions about specific opportunities, if you want to know my opinion on kind of the pay rate or just the opportunity in general, please send me a message on Instagram at Dr. Haley DDS, and I'd be happy to help you out and give my opinion. Obviously, I'm not an expert, but I have talked to a lot of dentists on this podcast, as well as colleagues, classmates, and things. So I do have some bit of a pool of what's normal and what's not. And I hope you all have a lovely week and tackle this week with a lot of great motivation and clear focus on your goals. And I will talk to you next Monday.